WOBM News presents Ask the Congressman with Tom MacArthur. This is your chance to discuss the issues with 3rd District Representative Tom MacArthur. The phones are open, 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions to @WOBM. Ask the Congressman begins now. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and WOBMAM.com.
Congress is nearing the end of a long summer break. It began without action on several key issues supported by Democrats, including gun ownership restrictions and research into Zika virus. Both issues rank high on the agenda of Representative Frank Pallone, who's bounced around the 6th Congressional District on a number of issues, many of them pointed and some of them fun. We're going to learn about them tonight. In a few days, the Long Branch Democrat observes the centennial of the National Park Service, with which he also has a simmering feud over proposed hikes in parking fees at Sandy Hook. The federal ruling that keeps sports betting off limits in New Jersey also drew his rancor, and on the 81st anniversary of the establishment of the Social Security system, Pallone issued dire warnings about its survival. These are among the issues we'll explore during this hour, and we invite you to take part. Mr. Representative, thanks for coming back.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be here.
It's been a while.
It has. I think I was last here in November of last
I
year.
know it was cold and you had your raincoat on. But you have been literally one end of the district to the other on a number of issues. And I don't know whether to take them in order of importance or chronologically, but let's start with sports betting, because
Sure.
I know that this was a key issue for you. Let's start with an initial question, which is very basic.
Sure.
There are so many ways for gamblers to lose money in this state. Why do we need another one?
Well, I think the difference in sports betting right now is that it goes on anyway. In other words, it's all pretty much done with organized crime, bookies, whatever you want to call it. And it seems to make sense to bring it out from the shadows and, regulate it rather than have organized crime benefit from it. And then the state could also make some income, as they do with the casino gambling or, horse betting at horse tracks. So, traditionally, I think we've learned through prohibition and whatever that if people are doing something in the gambling arena, it's probably better to make it legal and have some benefit to the state or the government from it.
All right, but at the same time, you're dealing with people who fall into a habit. They bet money they don't have. You've got a bigger problem now. You've got people who lose their jobs over it. How is increasing the number of ways you can wager really of any benefit?
Well, I think that there's always that argument that if gambling is legal, that, somehow it's going to encourage people. But I think, historically what we find is that they gamble anyway. And so, if it's done through organized crime, then it benefits them. People really don't have any transparency because it's being done illegally. And there's also the benefit of the state or the government getting some of the revenue. So I think for all those reasons, it makes sense to have it. It's the same argument I guess you could use for any kind of gambling, that, somehow it encourages people to do something that with their money that, they could use for food or clothing or whatever. But I think history shows that they gamble anyway, and they just go to the local bookie, and, it's not a good thing to have an organized crime basically feed on that.
Okay, let's go back to 1993.
Sure.
Take a walk back in time with me.
Right.
You were already in Congress.
That's
were
correct.
Out of the state legislature by then, but state of New Jersey, along with a lot of other states, had a 365-day window to bring it in.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Do you
Exactly.
remember why they didn't bring it in?
Well,
In what sense does it make to try and unring that bell now?
Well, I think at the time, the person who was opposed to it was Governor Whitman. She was adamantly opposed, and so that's why the legislature didn't pass the bill, because she expressed opposition. The difference now, I think, is that it would really help with Atlantic City. It would help with the racetracks. As you know, Atlantic City has fallen on harder times, and racetracks like Monmouth Park and Meadowlands are not doing as well. There's always the danger that they would actually start losing money and have to close. And frankly, we're very dependent on those for our local economy. If I only can give you an example, in Monmouth County, not only does Monmouth Park create a lot of jobs, but also the horses. As you know, we have horse farms in Monmouth County. We have the stables. All of that generates income and jobs. And I would hate to see it. I'd hate to see a situation where they couldn't continue to operate. And certainly, what's happening in Atlantic City. So generally speaking, what we found is that if we had sports betting, it would help the casinos in Atlantic City, and it would help those places that have racetracks like Monmouth County. So
your position is that it helps New Jersey stay competitive with all the surrounding states?
Well, no other. The only states that have sports betting now in a major way is Nevada. There is some, I think, in a few other states. But yeah, I mean, we've started to lose business to New York, to Delaware, to Pennsylvania. They all have casinos now, and some of them have slots at the casino, slots at the racetracks. Tracks. So this would help Atlantic City and the tracks, certainly.
Okay, but at the end of the day, you've still got that 1993 decision. We don't need it, thank you.
Well, what happened is
how do you turn that around?
We have to do it legislatively. As you know, in the last few years, we've tried to do it through court action. But most recently, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals turned it down and said that the original Bradley Act, which was passed by Senator Bradley years ago, would prohibit it without a change in the law. So I've sponsored a law, and Congressman Lobiando. The two of us have different legislation, but basically we accomplished the goal of allowing sports betting in New Jersey.
Where does that stand right now? Is it still in committee?
It's still in committee, but and we have opposition, as you know, from the major leagues, from the NFL primarily, from the Major League Baseball teams, from even hockey, everything. But they are starting to let up. But recently, the NBA, the Basketball Association commissioner, said that they would not have a problem with it anymore. And I keep pointing out that fantasy sports are legal, right? Which is not that different, really. And so I think it's a little hypocritical for the leagues, which actually invest in fantasy sports, to be saying that we shouldn't be allowed to have sports betting. But that's their position, and we're trying to get them to back off and try to pass the legislation.
Feel like talking to a constituent?
Sure, of course.
I think we've got one on the line at 732-505-1160. Let's see. All right, Mark, you want to grab those cans over there and you can hear the call?
Oh, I put this on?
That wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome in. Thank you for calling us, the Congressman. You're with Frank Pallone on WOBM-AM. What's your question?
Hi, Congressman. My name is Kevin. I'm originally from Brick. I'm now living in Long Branch.
Hi, Kevin.
Good. How are you? When you ran for Senate, members of your own party from Monmouth County worked to make sure that you lost. They pointed to your failures with Fort Monmouth and legislation that would have brought jobs to our district at Fort Hancock as reasons why the Democrats shouldn't support you. Now, my question for you is, if your own party doesn't support you, why should we?
Well, I don't know what you mean that. I mean, obviously, I'm the Democratic nominee and have been a Democratic congressman for 28 years. So I do have the support of my party. So I don't really know what you're talking about, Kevin, to be honest.
Okay. Is that it for Kevin? All right. Well, when he says your own party didn't support you, were there factions of the party that were splintered away?
I don't know what he's talking about, to be honest.
Uh-huh. Okay. Then I really can't move that along but I can kind of segue over to Hillary Clinton, if you
Sure.
Let me tell you a couple of interesting stories about it. First of all, my wife doesn't forgive her yet because she didn't kick her husband to the curb after Monica Lewinsky. All right, that's number one. She still holds a grudge. Okay, and number two, last month, I got a call from somebody with the Clinton campaign whose name was Skippy or something along those lines. Said, "Oh, the candidate is coming to New Jersey and blah blah blah," and I figure I'm getting set up for the big payoff. You know, we're looking for people who would like to discuss the issues, and so I said, "Oh, here it comes! I'm getting Hillary Clinton." He says, "Would you like to speak with Senator Booker?" And I think you were on the list of people to whom I could speak about Hillary Clinton. I said, "Well, why can't I talk to Hillary Clinton if she's coming here?" So apparently, she doesn't want to talk to everybody, and I'm not high enough on the food chain to get there, so I got my own axe to grind. But aside from that, this is an image race right now. You've got two people who are not everything they seem to be on either scale. Hillary Clinton keeps presenting herself as a woman of the people, you know, but based on the first Clinton administration, I never saw two more connected Beltway insiders than these two. I remember Friends of Bill, and I remember all of that business. I remember It's the Economy, Stupid. So this stuff is now lost on me. So I don't want you to bash Donald Trump. That's too easy for you. I want you to sell me Hillary Clinton.
Well, I think, look, the bottom line is that Hillary Clinton is probably, you know, not just me have said it, but a lot of people have said is probably the most qualified person to ever run for the presidency because, you know, she first of all, she was the first lady. Secondly, she was the United States Senator. She was the Secretary of State. I mean, she's been involved in government for a long time. Now, that does make her an insider. I mean, I'm not going to deny that, Tom. I think that, you know, the question is, do you want somebody who's been an insider, who has the experience, who can do the job? If that's not what you want, if, you know, I know I'm not supposed to talk about Trump, but, you know, if on the other hand, if you want somebody that's totally not been in government, is it, you know, doesn't have the experience. But I think that what we're seeing, if I can be a little comparative, is that a lot of people are afraid of Trump because they're not sure that he's, you know, can be the commander in chief or that he can be the president because a lot of times he doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. So I'm not going to deny that Hillary is an insider. But, you know, of course, I've been in office for 28 years, too, and I think there's some value in being an insider in the sense that you can get things done. I mean, sure, sure she's a Democrat. Sure, she's a progressive. I think you could even say she's a liberal. But she has a history of working with the Republicans to get things done, to get legislation passed. I mean, perfect example for me was the CHIP bill, the Children's Health Program, which sort of was a precursor to the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I worked with her to get that passed so a lot of kids would have health insurance who didn't previously have it, and it was bipartisan. It was done with the Republicans. And I could go through a whole list of things like that. So I think, you have to say, we can always look at the person's ideology. We can always say, you know, they've been there a long time, but there are advantages in having been there a long time in the sense that I think you know what to do. And I'd rather have somebody who knows what she's doing in the presidency than someone who, you know, sometimes seems clueless to me in the case of Donald Trump.
Then why did Barack Obama generate so much trust when he didn't have that kind of experience? He was a one-term congressman.
Well, I agree, but I have to be honest. I do think, and, you know, I love President Obama, but I do think that his lack of experience did make it difficult for him at times, particularly in the beginning of his presidency, to work with the Congress and to work with the Republicans. I mean, I think that's changed as time went on. You know, he's certainly, you know, after 7 years is now able to do that much more effectively. But it was true in the beginning that because he didn't have the experience, that it was more difficult for him to get legislation passed and to work with the Congress. I don't think you're going to have that with Hillary.
I guess it's just the repetitive experience of saying one thing and doing another. Obama said in two successive terms he was going to work on immigration.
Well, yeah, but the problem that he had was that the Republicans in Congress, not all, but certainly the Tea Party, the more right wing, they don't want anything to do with immigration because they say it's amnesty. Now, you've had many prominent Republicans, including both Presidents Bush, who were very much in favor of immigration reform that provided a pathway to citizenship for those who were here undocumented. And there are certainly Republicans who advocate a pathway to citizenship for those who are here undocumented. But many of the Republicans on the right just say, you came here illegally and that's it. You can't stay. And I think that's very unrealistic. So, the president has been out there trying to do some kind of immigration reform that would allow, either those who were kids, who came here when they were very young with their parents, and then with the parents themselves. But in every case, we've gotten opposition, from the more right wing of the Republican Party that just doesn't want to do that. So that's why, with the Republican majority, he hasn't been able to accomplish it.
All righty. We are going to step out for a second and give you a chance to breathe and up, down, a little coffee. And we're going to come back. We take your questions, too, at 732-505-1160. Stay with us.
So where's it?
Call Congressman Tom MacArthur now, 732-505-1160. Ask the Congressman continues next. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
There has never been a better time to show law enforcement that we care. Help WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and the Jay and Linda Grunin Foundation salute our law enforcement heroes in Ocean County with Huddle for Heroes. It's a program designed to showcase the many charitable, community-oriented events that our local law enforcement organizations are hosting. Together, we stand behind the people who stand on the line for us every day. Check out WOBMAM.com for upcoming local law enforcement charity events and more information.
It's back! Run, bounce, and slide your way through the craziest fun run you've done. Back in 2016 with even bigger, wilder obstacles than before. The Insane Inflatable 5K returns in just a few weeks, and you and your crew are invited back to the bounce party. Bob and weave through the Madhouse, one of our most challenging new obstacles, and get your bounce on and slide on classics like Jump Around and Wrecking Balls. The celebration is on the midway afterwards, and we have games, food, photo ops, and even more this year.
The Insane Inflatable 5K is coming to Drum Point Sports Complex in Brick on August 20th. Presented by Community Medical Center and RWJ Barnabas Health Facility. Let's be healthy together. And sponsored by Ocean Orthopedic Associates, Crunch Fitness, Immediate Care Medical Walk-In, Fuse Flavored Charged Iced Tea, and Wawa. Get your official Insane Inflatable photo sponsored by River Rock Restaurant and Marina Bar on Route 70 in Brick.
Check out all the new inflatables and register today at InsaneInflatable5K.com. See you on the course.
Gary, why aren't you outside enjoying the party?
Hey, Michelle. It's this heartburn. When it hits, it really hits hard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's it. I've had it. I'm gonna kick acid with Rolaids.
Rolaids Advanced goes to work instantly for powerful relief of your worst heartburn, bloating, and gas.
Wow, you're packed fast.
Yeah, I feel much better. Now this is a party.
Kick acid and gas with Rolaids Advanced.
Keep the questions coming. Call now to talk to Tom MacArthur, 732-505-1160. Follow the show on Twitter and tweet your questions at WOBM. Ask the Congressman continues now on News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310, and WOBMAM.com.
Welcome back. Tom Angeli with you and Congressman Frank Pallone in the studio with us. I didn't realize we had so many calls backed up, and I apologize for the wait, but we're going to start getting to them, okay? Okay, Mark, let's go to the next caller, please. Welcome in. You're on Ask the Congressman with Congressman Frank Pallone. What's your name and first name and where you're from?
Hi there, gentlemen. This is Tony from Atlantic Highlands.
Tony, thank you for calling. What is your question tonight?
Well, you guys are teasing on the radio there, the Congressman MacArthur show, but I'm equally as happy to speak to you, Congressman Pallone.
How you doing?
Good, good. I do have a question, though. Recently, over the weekend, Hillary Clinton released her taxes, and there's all this talk about Donald Trump releasing his taxes, which, I think he should, obviously. But since we're in this era of transparency and that word gets bandied around so much, I just have to ask you, Congressman, can you explain, you have $175,000 a year congressional salary, I believe, and I'm getting my information from this nonpartisan Center for Responsive Politics. So you have $175,000 you earn in Congress annually, but your personal net worth has grown from $400,000 in 2006, according to the site, to over $3 million today, according to these guys. Believe me, I don't begrudge you. It sounds, very Republican and in theory to make as much as you can. But could you explain where you got this money from? How you earned this money?
Well, it's not actually it's earned. It's actually inherited. In other words, in both my case, my I'm not trying to be morbid about it, but my both of my parents, are deceased now, and then also in my wife's case, both of her parents. So most of it's actually inherited.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay.
That's
okay. All right. And that brings me to my point here. If I can ask one more question, as far as the whole tax structure, where do you see that going in Congress once we get past this presidential election? Giving some breaks to the middle class. What are you planning? What are some of your initiatives there?
Well, I think that if you listen, again, I'm going back to the presidential race. I think if you look at some of the things that Hillary Clinton laid out in the last couple of weeks, a lot of the things she suggested would basically be breaks for the middle class. In other words, I think the best example would be trying to provide free tuition for college, for parents, I think, who make up to, I think it's $125,000 a year or something like that.
Well, I don't have any children.
Well, I know. But I don't know, actually. I'm sorry, Tony. But, there were a lot of things that she suggested. She suggested, trying to help with tuition. She talked more about child tax credits. A lot of it was family oriented, I would admit. A lot of it has been, to help people with children. I think that we're not talking about reducing income tax rates per se, but rather finding ways to make things more affordable for people that have kids. Also for seniors, one of the things that I've advocated is changing the COLA for Social Security. I know that Tom mentioned that we might talk a little bit about Social Security, in that we haven't had a COLA a few times in the last few years. The cost of living increase for seniors, which is particularly important, I think, in Ocean County, because you have a lot of seniors and senior communities. I used to represent Ocean County, as you know. Yeah. We're not talking about reducing the tax rates the way Trump does, on higher income people, but rather making it so that families who are middle class, can do things like, send their kids to college, take care of their kids if they have to work. I'd also like to see incentives for savings. I mean, one of the things that worries me when you talk about Social Security is that it's not enough. People need to have some kind of incentive to save, or maybe some kind of a matching fund where, if you put money away and you save it, that, it gets matched by the federal government in some way. That has been the case with a lot of people on the job where, their employer will match money that's put into some kind of a thrift savings. I'd like to see. So then,
Congressman,
like
if I understand, I'm sorry. If I understand you, then there's a lot you have on the drawing board here.
Well, I don't. I have to say that my committee that I deal with, that I'm the ranking member, which is like the chief Democrat, deals more with health and environmental issues. So I don't deal with tax measures per se in my committee. But I certainly think it's important that we make it easier for middle class people to make ends meet. And things like retirement savings, paying for college ed, paying for childcare, these are all things that I think we can improve to make it easier for the middle class.
All right, Tony, thank you very much for your call. Let's try and squeeze in one more before the break, okay? Welcome in. It's WOBM-AM's Ask the Congressman. Mr. Pallone is in the house. What's your first name? Where are you from?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Turn your radio down, and it'll work much better.
Hey, sure.
Okay.
This is Brian from Piscataway.
Hi, Brian.
Hey. So, Congressman,
You're not the mayor, are you?
No. Huh?
Are you the mayor?
You're not Mayor Waller, are you? No.
No.
Your mayor's name is Brian.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see. Thank you. Anyway, important question here. I mean, I work very hard every day. I work in a mechanic shop. I work with my hands. My father worked that way as well. And we struggle for every dollar we earn. So I would hope that my representatives in Washington, in Trenton, will be working hard every day to affect the things that are most important to me. And what's most important to me is my job. So with so many issues facing us today, why do you spend time trying to regulate Pokemon and fantasy football? I hear this stuff in the news and all that. It drives me nuts. So could you address that?
Well, some of it is job related, but because we're talking about economic development. But it's my committee, Brian. In other words, my committee has jurisdiction. When I'm the ranking member, that means that I'm the chief Democrat. If we were in the majority, I'd be the chairman. So our committee, the committee that I serve on, deals with the environment, energy, healthcare, and telecommunications and the internet. So that's why you may hear a lot of things related to the internet or to video games or that type of thing. But let me say, look, the most important thing that we need to do in Congress, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is economic development and job creation. And I think that that's how we all should be sort of tested is, what is our position on creating jobs? And, I don't want to, maybe that's not your question, but I really think that if I could just say that I think one of the most important things is that we have to make a lot more investments in infrastructure. One of the things that that really worries me is that, we're not investing in our education infrastructure. We're not investing in transportation infrastructure. We're not investing in broadband and the internet infrastructure. And I think that's the best way to create jobs.
Congressman Pallone, we're going to step out for a news break. We'll be back. Thank you very much, Tony and Brian, for your calls. We're at 732-505-1160. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Call in and stick around with us.
More with Congressman Tom MacArthur coming up next. This is Ask the Congressman. News Talk Radio, WOBM-AM 1160 and 1310.
This is Marianne Levy, News Talk Radio, WOBM-AM 1160 and 1310.
An excessive heat warning continues till 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Heat indices one more time during the daytime on Tuesday could be approaching 100 in a couple of spots. Scattered thunderstorms are a possibility tonight. Some of them could have some heavy rainfall in spots, a low dropping down to the mid-70s. More storms look possible as we head through the day Tuesday, especially in the morning. Drier and somewhat hotter in the afternoon. Highs in the low 90s, sunny and about 90 on Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Mark Thibodeau.
News Talk Radio, WOBM.
Are you currently retired or planning to retire in the next 5 years? Lou Scatigna here, certified financial planner, president of AFM Investments, and host of The Financial Physician, heard every Friday right here on WOBM-AM. I would like to invite you to join me for a complimentary retirement review. Safe investments like CDs pay virtually nothing, and the stock market has become a risky casino, but there are ways to achieve reasonable returns on your money without taking on big risks. Let me show you how. I will determine your net worth, find ways to maximize your income, and minimize your taxes. We will discuss estate planning and strategies to protect you from nursing home costs. Not retired yet, but have a 401k? Come in for a 401k evaluation and I will give you specific suggestions on how you should be invested during these crazy times. As a bonus, you will receive a signed copy of my popular book, The Financial Physician. Make your appointment today by calling 732-905-8100. That's 732-905-8100. Securities transactions through Lee Baldwin & Company, member FINRA and SIPC. Registered investment advisory services through Agentis Advisors.
Do you have $10,000 or more in outstanding federal student loans? Well, you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven with one free call. That's right. If you're a teacher, nurse, police officer, firefighter, or work for a nonprofit, then you may qualify for new federal programs to have your entire student loan forgiven. The Student Loan Council wants to give you free information on all the programs that can help, and the sooner you call, the faster they can help. Get the maximum loan forgiveness, loan reduction, or consolidation available. Plus, find out in the first free call what you qualify for. A loan forgiveness specialist is standing by to answer all of your questions for free. So stop worrying about your student loan payments. If you have more than $10,000 in federal student loans, this information could change your life. Call 800-579-4409. 800-579-4409. Completely wipe out your federal student loan debt. Find out how. 800-579-4409. That's 800-579-4409.
Takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! Touchdown! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
Jets fans, if you were there for that moment, you'll never forget it. If you weren't, you can be there for the next one. The regular season starts on September 11th, so buy tickets now and gain access to exclusive Jets events. Call 800-469-JETS for tickets and mention code GREEN for a free season ticket holder gift. Visit jointhejets.com for pricing.
Your voice can be heard on Capitol Hill. Call 732-505-1160 or tweet your question at WOBM. This is Ask the Congressman. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and WOBMAM.com.
Because I'll start saying something. Oh, God.
Welcome back. It's Ask the Congressman for the month of August. I'm Tom Mongelli. Congressman Frank Pallone is in the studio with us. We're at 732-505-1160. And we look forward to hearing from you. We're discussing a lot of the issues that have been cropping up. And, you know, I just want to touch back a second on what Brian was talking about. His point really, I think, was that, you know, when there is a major issue going on, and I thought about this too, and it's not limited to you, it's almost anybody in any form of legislative government. When there's a hot button issue going on, all of a sudden you'll hear about Congressman so-and-so supporting something that's completely in left field, or, you know, it's not pertinent to an issue that's happening right now. So I just explain a little bit about your thought process. When you're in the realms of your committees and all of these issues are bouncing around, how do you determine what's going to draw your attention and what's going to generate your support, and what needs to be radiated out there is that, this is important to me, should be important to you. So how do you arrive at those decisions?
Well, I think sometimes people don't realize that when we're in Congress, we do tend to specialize because of the committees, right?
Yeah.
In other words, if you sponsor a bill in your committee, then it's easier to get a hearing, it's easier to move the bill. So naturally you gravitate towards the issues that are on your committees. So as I said, you know, when I became the ranking member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, it has jurisdiction over the internet. So therefore, anything that regulates the internet or has oversight over the internet is something that I naturally take an interest to, because we have the ability to, you know, to exercise oversight. We don't just pass bills, as you know, Tom. We also have oversight over agencies or over, you know, different action that takes place. And so if we think there's something wrong or that something needs to be improved in that area where our committee expertise lies, we naturally deal with it. Like, you know, you mentioned, for example, the opioid epidemic, or Zika, or brownfields.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things that I've sponsored bills because they come before our committee because they're health or environment related. And if you sponsor bills or you try to move legislation in those areas, sports betting is another one. Gambling comes into our committee under commerce. Then it's easier to get things done, and people tend to trust you more, because at least your colleagues, because you have the expertise.
Mm-hmm. I have another call coming in. You feel like getting back to the phone?
Sure.
Welcome in. It's Ask the Congressman. You're with Congressman Frank Pallone. What's your first name and where are you from?
Hey, this is Justin calling from Perth Amboy.
Hi,
Thank you for calling, Justin. What's your question tonight?
Hey, I just have a quick question. So, Congressman, you've been in Congress for 28 years, and I mean, I wasn't even born yet. But
a lot of people tell me that.
sorry, but over time, I go back to, I think it was 88.
Right.
So, over time, it's been 23 million Americans out of work. We made an awful deal, I feel, as a Jewish person, with Iran, and our infrastructure is absolutely a mess. So, for being in Congress for so long, looking back on your career, if you had to do it over again, would you do it the same way?
Well, I think so for the most part. I mean, look, as you know, the economy has its ups and downs. So we did have a recession in, 6 or 7 years ago now. But I mean, and that resulted in a lot of people losing jobs. But I think that we've done a lot to correct that. I mean, we basically made it harder, I think, for the recession to occur in the sense that, we now have Dodd-Franks, we now have a lot of protections over banks and security firms that didn't exist before. And in the last, 6 or 7 years now, we've actually seen the economy improve so that, unemployment is now down to about 4% or so. So, I mean, there are obviously economic ups and downs, but the main thing that I, take a lot of pride in, if I could mention a couple things. One is on the environment. When I was first elected in '88, I represented Monmouth and Ocean County, and we had about a dozen of these ocean dumping sites, and all the beaches were closed in Monmouth and Ocean for the most part. Billions of dollars was lost because of pollution, medical waste and garbage and sewage sludge. And all those sites have been closed. And now, the water's pretty clean, not perfect, but certainly clean. And the tourism industry is thriving again. And then the other thing, of course, I do take a lot of pride in the Affordable Care Act because so many more people now have health insurance, which was one of the bills that I worked on. And I think we're going to see even expansion of health insurance, even more so in the next few years. So, you have to look back on your career and say, what have you accomplished? I think there's a lot that I have done. I'm just using those two as an example. As far as Iran is concerned, I think we just disagree. In other words, I think that so far the Iran agreement is working in the sense that I don't believe that Iran has developed nuclear weapons. I mean, obviously we got to keep tabs on Iran because they can't be trusted. But I think so far every indication from our own intelligence is that they haven't developed nuclear weapons. So I think that the Iran agreement so far has actually been successful.
I got to go along with Justin on this one, only because you're talking about a limited window. 10 years and all bets are off the table. And we have no way of verifying everything that's going on in there. We don't know that the verifiers are going to be dealing with us on a level either.
I mean, look, you can look at it however you want. I mean, the bottom line is that I think Iran was about to move towards a nuclear weapon, having nuclear weapons. And I think if we can, through peaceful means, without having to go to war with them, come to an agreement, even though they're an enemy, I think it's worthwhile. But, time will tell. I mean, Tom, I think we probably have to look back maybe 5 or 10 years from now. But so far, I think that it's been successful because I think Iran was on the threshold of developing and deploying a nuclear weapon, but for the agreement.
Thanks for calling, Justin. It's Ask the Congressman for a Monday night in the middle of August. Have you been able to relax at all? I mean, what do you do when you're back from?
We haven't.
Extended time from the district and from the Hill.
Well, first in July, at the end of July, we had the conventions, so that took up time, and most.
Oh, come on, that's not work.
Well, you can argue whether it's work or not. Yeah, but since the beginning of August, a lot of it has just been basically in the office doing a lot of constituent work, and just going around and meeting people at different events. So,
is the office still in the same place in Long Branch?
Well, we still have the office in Long Branch on Broadway, 504, and then we have another office for Middlesex County in New Brunswick on Church Street, Kilmer Square.
I found it ironic that couple of pieces of information flowed out of your office. one congratulating the National Park Service on 100 years of fine work, and another one almost concomitantly taking issue with the whole move to raise the parking and camping fees at Sandy Hook, which is also in their backyard. So, do you like them or don't you?
Well, I like them, but I don't want them to raise fees because right now Sandy Hook is pretty affordable. And to be honest, there aren't a lot of things that are affordable. So it's nice to have a place where people can, take their car and, a bunch of kids and go for the day. Right now it's $15, and the Park Service wants to raise it to $20, for the day, and they want to raise it from $75 to $100 for the season. But I think also, you pointed out one of the concerns, Tom, is that the money doesn't actually go to Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook is part of Gateway, which includes all these parks in New Jersey and New York, around the New York metropolitan area. And I haven't gotten any kind of guarantee that this extra money that comes in will actually be used at Sandy Hook.
So that's one of the questions. It goes into a pool?
Yeah, it goes into Gateway as a whole. And so, we're going to have hearings, or I guess information sessions that I requested. I can give the dates if you want.
Yeah, we have one on the 20th.
Saturday, August 20th from 11 to 2 p.m. in Lot D. And then on Wednesday, August 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. at the chapel. And I think, I would encourage people to come out there because, I think I can go both days because, there are a lot of questions. In other words, there are buildings and other things at Sandy Hook, that are frankly falling apart, and this money can't be used to fix all of those. But I would like to know to what extent, whatever fees are collected or any increase is actually being used at Sandy Hook. But I do think that, the last time it was raised was 2012, which was 4 years ago, from 10 to 15, now to 20. I do think it's too much of an increase over a short period of time. And I know people will say, well, that's not a lot of money. But, it's a question of degree, and there are people that I think will not be able to afford it.
How do you think these fees compare with, for example, Yellowstone or any other national park, Yosemite? Do you have any handle on what they're charging?
No, I don't. But again,
because I remember it being pretty expensive, and it was like years ago when I took the kids out there.
It's possible. But remember, Tom, it's a little different in the sense that the people that are traveling to Yosemite or Yellowstone, usually going for a few days, and they're making a whole vacation out of it. If you go to Sandy Hook, most of the people, they just come down for the day, and they're looking for an affordable alternative to, wherever they live. And I just think that
so $20 a day.
You shouldn't make it necessarily a comparison to places like Yellowstone, although some people will, I guess.
All right, so we're at the 20th in Lot D, the 31st in the chapel, and the chapel one is an evening event, 6 to 8.
Right.
Let me ask you before too much time elapses about the roof that you and Senator Menendez raised over Zika funding. Okay, I'm not saying that this is not a problem. Okay?
Right.
So let me be clear about that. But you're looking for, the president asked for $1.9 billion into research and prevention. How does that become the magic number? Why is it $1.9 billion?
Well, I think that's what he estimates is necessary, not just for research, but also for public notices, for mosquito control, for vaccines. I was at the Middlesex County Mosquito Commission the other day when I was criticizing the Republicans for not appropriating this money, because they do a lot of spraying, for example, and they do a lot of public announcements and educating the public about public health threats, including Zika. And I'm not so sure that the issue is the $1.9 billion. The issue that separates Democrats and Republicans on this, Tom, is that the Republicans are insisting that this money be taken from other public health programs, another from Ebola, from the Affordable Care Act, from tuberculosis, from Ryan White, whatever it is. So they're saying, they're not saying they have a problem with the 1.9 necessarily. They just don't want to appropriate any new money. They want to cut existing programs. And the problem is that those existing programs, for the most part, are ongoing public health problems as well. So in order to deal with the Zika crisis, the president cut, I think, about $500 million from Ebola to finance what we've been doing now. And then in the last week or so, he announced that he was going to take another 80 million from other public health programs in order to finance the next phase for a vaccine. They've already done like phase 1. They're moving to phase 2. But the problem is, I think these other public health problems haven't gone away.
No, but doesn't this then become incumbent on everyone managing those situations to manage their funds more efficiently?
Yeah, but we're talking about a public health crisis, Tom. In other words, I mean, to me...
You could be talking about anything. It's a question about how you spend the money.
Well, I agree, but what I guess I'm saying is that I think that these public health programs should be a priority. Either you come up with new funds or you look for something without cutting public health programs. You could, cut defense or you could cut something else. I'm just very concerned that we're really getting, what is the word, penny wise and pound foolish when we talk about, public health programs. I mean, for example, when I was at the Middlesex County Mosquito Control Commission, they were saying that that day they were spraying for West Nile virus, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they don't want to cut the spraying for that in order to do Zika spraying.
No.
So, I mean, this is the problem is, I think that's the difference between the parties. And what we've been really saying is you can't assume that you're going to take it from these other problems that exist.
All right. We're going to have to step back for one more time. And then we've got a few more minutes on Ask the Congressman for this evening. Representative Frank Pallone's in the studio. We're at 732-505-1160. And you can also message us on Facebook or on Twitter. So we'll look for you. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Do you have $10,000 or more in outstanding federal student loans? Well, you may qualify to have your entire student loan forgiven with one free call. That's right. If you're a teacher, nurse, police officer, firefighter, or work for a nonprofit, then you may qualify for new federal programs to have your entire student loan forgiven. The Student Loan Council wants to give you free information on all the programs that can help, and the sooner you call, the faster they can help. Get the maximum loan forgiveness, loan reduction, or consolidation available. Plus, find out in the first free call what you qualify for. A loan forgiveness specialist is standing by to answer all of your questions for free. So stop worrying about your student loan payments. If you have more than $10,000 in federal student loans, this information could change your life. Call 800-579-4409. 800-579-4409. Completely wipe out your federal student loan debt. Find out how. 800-579-4409. That's 800-579-4409.
Hello, can I have your company name, please?
Yeah, hi, Jane's Plumbing.
1 moment, please.
10 minutes later.
Hello, can I have your company name, please?
Business owners, are you tired of your marketing company's runaround? Are you tired of being a number? Are you tired of explaining your story over and over again every time your website needs an update? If so, it's time to change. Choose Townsquare Interactive as your digital marketing solution. When you work with Townsquare Interactive, you have one point of contact and your marketing specialist knows your company well, working with you to create a digital marketing strategy that actually works. Townsquare Interactive, big results for a small business. Visit townsquareinteractive.com/radio or call 732-691-4007 to get started.
Your voice can be heard on Capitol Hill. Call 732-505-1160 or tweet your question at WOBM. This is Ask the Congressman. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 and WOBMAM.com.
Welcome back. We're at 732-505-1160. You know what? I really want, a lot of people have mentioned, how the length of time that you've been in office in Washington. And I wondered how your perception of the district. And that the district has changed. Boundaries have
It has
changed.
a lot, yeah.
But the core district, the part that's always been there for you, and you've always been there for it. How have your perceptions of that core section changed, and your district in general? I mean, it's not the same state it was. It's not the same district it was. Income levels have changed. Demographics has changed. How has it shaped your job, and how has it shaped your view?
Well, the interesting thing is that you mentioned that is that I was thinking that the only area that I have represented for the whole 28 years is the shore towns between Keyport and Asbury Park, which is not that much a percentage of the district.
No.
Actually. I know, because it's changed so much over the years.
Ocean's gone. Middlesex is in its place.
Yeah, and even towns that were further west that I don't represent anymore, I mean, look, it's still, for the most part, central Jersey, right? And a lot of it, and pretty much the towns that are either along the Jersey Shore or along the Raritan River or the Raritan Bay, So, I mean, I think that there's always been the cohesion and the concern over the environment, and so to the extent that I and the committee jurisdiction relates to the environment, that's always been consistent. We did, maybe I should say that, maybe let me say this, and I don't want to be critical of the media, Tom, but a lot of time,
go ahead.
Well, a lot
everybody
of the
else is.
A lot of time, the media really plays up the fact that Democrats and Republicans argue and fight and don't get anything done, and I don't really think that's true. I got to be honest. I mean, I would say that 80% of the bills that come out of our committee and that I deal with are actually bipartisan. And I can just give you a couple examples. The president just signed a bill called TSCA that deals with toxic substances in the workplace and in your cleaning supplies and, what you breathe, whatever. And that was done on a bipartisan basis and signed into law by President Obama with a Republican Congress. And, we mentioned brownfields, which we didn't get into much, but...
Well, we're going to before this.
Well, that was a bill that I sponsored in, maybe 15 years ago. The idea came from Governor Whitman, who was the head of the EPA at the time, and it was under George Bush. And he signed it into law to establish a brownfields program. So there really is a lot more bipartisanship than people realize. But I think certain legislation becomes toxic in the sense that, like the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare becomes, is just...
Well, yeah, they'll become flashpoints.
It becomes a flashpoint. But for the most part, most of what we do is bipartisan. And I may have a liberal ideology, but that doesn't prevent me from working on a compromise with conservatives. I mean, the TSCA bill that I just mentioned, I had to work with Tea Party guys to get that passed, and we still got it passed. So.
Well, what you're speaking to here kind of feeds into the thing that Donald Trump used to get everybody all riled up in the first place, which is it's a club, and they're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to work together when they want to work together, and we need to go in and break that up.
Yeah, but see, that's a wrong philosophy. I think that what you do is you go down to Washington and you say what you believe in, okay? So I'm a liberal or a progressive, and I say, for example, that I'd like to have a single-payer health system, right? Because that's what I would advocate, okay? But I knew that we were never going to get that, and so I came up with Affordable Care Act, which people know as Obamacare, which basically, for the most part, is a private system. You have to go on the exchange, buy the insurance privately. You get a subsidy from the government if your income's below a certain level, but it's still private health insurance. It's not a single-payer system, right? So that's, to me, a perfect example. You may have your ideology, and you can say what you'd like to see, but then you work with the opposition or with the Republicans, whoever it happens to be, to try to accomplish a goal as much as you can to what you're trying to achieve. That's the way it is. And to say you want to break that up, what does that mean? You want to break up the government so the government doesn't run at all? That's why I don't understand what Trump is even saying when he says he wants to break it up. And we go back to Hillary Clinton, and I think she's kind of like me. She's a liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call it. But she's willing to work with the Republicans or the conservatives to get things done. I just think that's practically speaking what we do, and what the founders and our Constitution envisioned. Right. That's my view.
We got maybe a minute left here, and I just want to touch on that brownfields legislation. You had a chance to see the program in action in the park up in Asbury Park.
Yes.
Which was a really good thing.
Right.
What are your concerns about this program going forward?
Well, the problem is the program hasn't had as much money, and it needs some changes to make it more effective, right? This is where you clean up these old toxic waste sites, and then you can use them again for, commercial areas, shopping, businesses, whatever. It needs to have a higher authorization level because we don't have as much money and we have a lot of sites. And it also needs to be more flexible so that community development agencies, nonprofits can take advantage of it. So that's the legislation would reauthorize it at a higher level and provide a lot more flexibility so community groups, nonprofits can get involved and clean up some of these sites. Because a lot of times they're not, you don't have, a private enterprise that wants to do it.
We're not going to see it till after the elections. I'm assuming that you'll be back after the election.
I hope so.
Okay. Good. We're going to put you on. We're going to pencil you in there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Ask the Congressman is a presentation of Town Square Media, New Jersey Shore News Division. Technical coordination and call facilitation by Mark Anthony. Video and audio coordination by Bradley James and Tom Tremblay. Our programming consultant is Steve Arlina. Town Square, New Jersey's Vice President of News Operations is Eric Scott. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks with Tom MacArthur.
WOBM Lakewood Township, WADB Asbury Park. Live from the Preferred Home Healthcare Studio, News Talk Radio, WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.